Today for Painting Playtime, we're going to experiment with some Daniel Smith watercolor ground. It's the transparent one. I'm going to apply it with a fat paintbrush onto a paper bag, a piece of sheet music, and to a journal cover. You'll need these materials or any materials that you are curious about using watercolor ground on, and you'll need your watercolor paints. Let's get started. Well, this is what happens when you're not watching what you're doing and you open your brand new bottle of watercolor ground. This is the Daniel Smith transparent watercolor ground. And I guess what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to use what fell onto the cover there. Luckily, most of it fell on that. And I'll just spread this around. I'm going to do the whole cover. If I like how this comes out, then I'll try to do it on the front cover. And I think I have a lot on here, so I'm going to scrape some of it back off into the jar. I've never used this before. I've always been curious about it. I see creators on Instagram and YouTube using it on a big variety of objects. I've seen Rebel Unicorn, her name's Lacey, put it on earrings and then watercolor paint her own earrings. I've seen people put it on book pages, which I'm going to do too. So that one's ready to just let it dry. I think I want to fix the texture so that it is uniform. Okay. I have a paper bag that I want to put it on. And I'm going to cut the bag from Blick. Okay, I'm going to let that dry for 24 hours. And now I have one last thing. I have some sheet music from The Sound of Music. So I'll add the ground onto there. It's been 24 hours and I was thinking about what I could paint on these three surfaces that I applied the transparent watercolor ground to. So I've been messing around with a dip pen, and I was playing with just some scraps of paper, and I thought I could do this on these. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one on here. So this was the inside cover of a new journal. I didn't want to practice on the outside. I think I'm just going to do like 3 tulips on here. And then on here, I have an idea for just an easy little flower. But if you can, you can see that in the thicker areas, maybe where I had the watercolor ground on a little thicker than some other areas, it actually dried a little bit opaque. You can see some white. And that might be because this was wrinkled. You can't really tell at all on here. It just has a little bit of a shimmer. And then on here, the same thing as on the brown. You can see some white, chalky kind of material on there. So we'll see how it acts when we paint. I'm going to make the stems first. Grab some of this green, a stem there, a stem here, and I'll just do 3, and a stem here. And now with a lighter value, I can do the leaves. I'm going to get some green gold. Okay, more green gold. This is really easy, and it doesn't seem like it's acting any differently. Actually, now that it's sitting there, I do see that it is bleeding out from where I painted. It's actually kind of a ragged edge. Maybe we'll like that effect, maybe we won't. We'll see when it dries. And get some sap green. Because it is acting this way, I'm not crazy about that. But I wonder if I had put a second coat of watercolor ground on this, if it would be different. So that might be for a different video. I'm going to go ahead and do a tulip. I'm going to do one with opera. Put some water in there. And when that dries, I'll do this middle one so that it looks separate. I want to do a little bit more green so that it travels up in there. Now here, the stems are actually drying and not bleeding into the background. So I don't know. Let's do a yellow one. This is cadmium yellow. Again, I'm going to add a little green just to the base. Permanent alizarin crimson. Maybe this is one of those ones with the different shaped petals. Interesting. Maybe if I just... It is starting to be shaggy right here, but the pink one's not getting shaggy. This one is starting to get shaggy. I am just wetting it because I want to disguise the shagginess with some splats. And maybe we've got some disappearing edges. Okay, some green splats. It's now all dry, and I do like what I did with the water here. I'm going to go over it again and then see if it still will bleed, and I'm going to finish the tulips. So this tulip was opera. And to that I'm going to add a little bit of quinacridone magenta. The yellow one I'm going to add some transparent orange to. Now let's play with these stems a little bit more. I'm going to get some green gold. Let's see, let's do just a simple. I mean, it came out pretty. It is still drying shaggy on some of the edges. The green, I think I overall like the effect. I think that would be a pretty journal cover. So let's try this with, nowhere to put it. Let's try it on here. This is just sheet music. And I mentioned earlier that you can't really see the watercolor ground. So I think for this one, I'm just going to make this right here in the middle, just to keep it quick and simple. One little stem. And I'm going to add some cadmium yellow. Let's see how that does. Paint bleeding out right here and here, but not all the way over onto this leaf. This, just a couple of little spots are bleeding out. So we'll keep an eye on that. And now on this one, I thought it would be fun to do a friend of mine's design that she did on her tiny art. And it came out really cute, and I asked her if I could do it, and she said sure. And now we do another color that is a little bit darker than this. So I will get some more opera. And I'll do a little circle. And then you paint the whole thing again. So this will tell us if the watercolor ground can take a lot of layers. And it did crinkle up. You can see it's very, in the first place, a paper bag, this thin little paper bag, isn't exactly the best paper to be painting on. But you want to experiment and see what happens when you try different things. Second step is, or maybe a third step, you make another line, another circle around. Make it look like a donut. And to this opera, I've added a little bit of alizarin crimson. I taped it down so that it would stop moving around. Should have done that in the first place. So now I have my fourth layer ready. I'm going to do another ring. And paint the outside. Okay, time for the next layer. I added a little purple to the alizarin crimson. Now you can see we're getting out of the boundary. And this paper is really holding up to this. And there we have it, an experiment with watercolor ground on 3 different surfaces using watercolor paint. I did try to do some lines with 2 different kinds of pens, and I will say that I don't think the watercolor ground likes to have pens on it. It didn't really take. It worked at first on here with this one. This is an Arteza 6mm tip. And then as I was going, it stopped wanting to work. It didn't want to work on this at all. So I switched to this Pilot G-Tech C4 that I use a lot. I like to use this one on wet watercolor. I didn't do it at all on this one. So there you have it. I think if I do it again, I would probably do one coat and then in 24 hours do another coat of the watercolor ground, and then in 24 hours try to paint, especially on something as flimsy as a paper bag. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's painting playtime. Have a great day.